So if you are planning to build your own PC and you know very little or nothing about motherboards, don't worry. Stick around, we've got you covered. So there are a lot of expensive and cheap motherboards in the market, and you must be wondering which one to choose. And you must be thinking that expensive motherboards are better. Yes, they are better, but sometimes we don't need those expensive motherboards because they have those extra features that we actually don't need. So in this video, I'll be explaining everything about that, what you need to look out for before building your own PC. Now first you want to make sure that the socket type of your motherboard is compatible with your CPU, because Intel tend to change it every couple of generations, but AMD doesn't do that. You just need a BIOS update and you're good to go. But if you're thinking where to get all that compatibility information, you can Google it all you want, but let me just show you a little bit of it. Can you pass me the processor box? Yep. It's here, LGA 1200, it's written right here, and this motherboard is using LGA 1200 socket. Now you can use 10th gen and 11th gen processor with LGA 1200 socket. Now can you show me the motherboard box, ma'am? Now I've got the motherboard box right here, and not gonna ask for it anymore. It says Intel 10th gen compatible, and it is 10th generation processor, and now you know these both are compatible. Now if you're wondering, you can put an older generation processor on it. No, you cannot. Even 9th generation, no, you can't just do that. And to give your CPU the power it needs, you need to plug in the 8-pin power connector, which is located at the top left side of your motherboard. And to power up the whole motherboard, you need to plug in the 24-pin power connector, which is located right here. It's really big and really hard to ignore. Now you are noticing this big aluminum block. It is actually here to cool down the VRMs. Now VRMs stand for voltage regulating modules, and they provide voltages directly to your CPU, and they get pretty hot. To cool them down, you need a good heatsink. Now if you are going for higher end processors, you need to actually go for those expensive motherboards which I talked about before. But right now, if you are using Core i5 or even Core i7, it is actually adequate motherboard. If you want to know more about this, I'll be talking about it at the end of our video. Now these 4 slots right here are known as TIM slots, and that is where you install your RAM. Now most of the latest motherboard supports 4 RAM slots and dual channel memory operation. And what does that mean? It means there are 2 fast lanes for your data to go through from your RAM to your CPU. And if your motherboard has single channel memory operation, that means there is only 1 lane. And you must be thinking, if your motherboard has 2 RAM slots, then you are stuck with single channel memory operation. Actually, that is not true. Before you decide your motherboard is trash, you should watch the feature list of your motherboard, and every motherboard has its own configuration. So if you're using less RAM sticks than the slots available, then there is only one way that you can install your RAM. In my case, I'm using MSIB 460M motherboard, and there is only one way that I can install my 2 sticks of RAM on this motherboard. The first one will go in the first slot, and the second one will go in the third slot. And this is also mentioned on the motherboard, like here, B2 and A2 needs to be populated first. Also, latest motherboard and CPUs support DDR4 RAM speeds, so you should also want to keep that in mind. Now this port right here is known as M.2 port, and that is where you can install your M.2 NVMe SSD. Now my 970 Evo Plus is really fast drive, and to cool it down, some entry-level budget gaming boards have included at least one heatsink to cool these drives down. Now if you are planning to install 2.5 SSDs and hard drives, that is where these SATA ports come in. And these L-shaped connectors, also known as SATA data connectors, and you connect your drives here. Now this port right here is where you want to install your graphics card, and this is known as PCIe 16X slot. And this one right here is 1X slot, and it has some various uses, like if you want to expand your I/O, or you want to add high-speed networking card, Wi-Fi card, or you want to add more M.2 drives on your motherboard. This comes in really handy. Now to connect your USB Type-C, you need to actually have this connector right on your motherboard. If you don't have it, you cannot use your Type-C of your case on your motherboard. And if you want to connect your USB 3.0 connector, you need this USB 3.0 header. Just put it on it, connect, and you are good to go. And for the USB 2.0, you need this connector right here. It's actually quite simple. Just connect it and you're good to go. To get the audio jack working of your case, connect the HD audio cable here, and that's pretty much it. And if you wanna use your power button and reset button that actually you want to use. You want to look for front panel connectors. It's actually this kind of information written here on your motherboard, and these are the ones which are called the front panel connectors. You can also locate them by looking at your motherboard manual, no problem at all. There are multiple 4-pin headers on your motherboard to power up your AIO pump, fans, and even CPU fan. Actually, in the end, these headers have different labels, but they are the same. And to give your RGB or ARGB fans power, now you need to connect RGB connector on this 4-pin header right here, and ARGB connector on this ARGB header. Now RGB connector has 4 pins and ARGB one has 3 pins. You don't want to put ARGB connector on the RGB one because it will fry your ARGB strip in the fan. Now you don't want that to happen because that ARGB fan requires 5 volt and the RGB connector or header gives 12 volts, so it will fry that automatically. Now I quickly want to talk about the different sizes of the motherboards. Now ATX is the standard size, but we have different variants, where MA-ATX is the smaller version of the ATX board and M means micro, and E-ATX is the bigger version and E means extended, and we have Mini ITX, which is really small form factor, and there are so many choices out there that you need to decide that which motherboard you want to go with according to your case. Now if you're going with Intel 11th gen processors and you don't want to overclock your CPU or RAM as well, then I recommend you go with B560 chipset, and if you want to overclock, then go with the Z590 chipset. Now if you are not going with Intel 11th gen processors and you don't want to overclock, then go with the B460 chipset, and if you want to overclock, then go with the Z490 chipset. Now if you're going AMD, which I actually recommend, and you are not going to overclock your CPU or maybe a little bit overclocking, then I recommend you go with the B550 chipset. And if you are going to overclock heavily, then I recommend you go with the X570 chipset. And that's pretty much it for this motherboard guide, guys. And I'm going to tell you why I chose this MSI B460M motherboard, because it was cheap. I got it for 20,000 PKR. It is this many USDs, and yeah, it had everything I needed. ARGB connector, Wi-Fi as the name suggests, and overall really good heat sinks on it. It can even handle Core i7, even Core i9. And yeah, that's pretty much it for this video, guys. I hope you guys learned something from it, enjoyed it, and if you enjoyed it, like our video, subscribe our channel, and I'll be waiting for you guys in the next video.